The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a man in a crisp uniform who wouldn't meet my eyes. My hands shook as I tore open the envelope, coffee growing cold on my childhood kitchen table. 30-day notice to vacate. The legal document stated in cold, mechanical font. Failure to comply will result in formal eviction proceedings. Mom. I called out, my voice cracking like I was 16 again instead of 24. What is this? She appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of manufactured concern. Behind her stood my sister Jessica, arms crossed, looking smugly satisfied. Oh honey, Mom sighed as if delivering tragic news. We've been talking, and well, it's time you learned to stand on your own 2 feet. But I've been paying you $2,500 a month for 3 years. The words exploded out of me. That's more than most apartments cost. Jessica smirked. Maybe if you'd saved better instead of wasting money on your little hobbies. The room spun. 3 years of faithfully handing over my entire paycheck, minus a meager allowance for groceries and gas. 3 years of living in my childhood bedroom while Jessica lived rent-free in the converted garage apartment, complete with her own entrance and kitchenette. 30 days, Mom repeated, already turning away. Growing up, I'd always known Jessica was the favorite. She was 3 years older, effortlessly beautiful, and could charm our parents out of anything. When she dropped out of college junior year to find herself, they called it a sabbatical. When I earned my business degree summa cum laude, they reminded me that book smarts don't equal street smarts. The garage apartment had been converted for Jessica's 21st birthday, a surprise gift complete with hardwood floors and granite countertops. When I graduated and moved back home to help with Dad's medical bills after his heart attack, I was assigned my old room with the twin bed and boy band posters. It's temporary, I'd told myself, even as months turned to years. But Jessica's temporary had become permanent, and somehow mine had become unwelcome. I watched through my bedroom window as she hosted wine nights with friends, their laughter floating across the small courtyard that separated our spaces. She drove a BMW, a graduation gift from our parents for the degree she never finished. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic that I'd bought myself. The financial arrangement had started simply enough. Just help with household expenses, Dad had said after his recovery. You're an adult now. But $2,500 felt more like punishment than contribution. That night, I sat in my Honda in the parking lot of First National Bank, staring at the building where I'd worked as a junior analyst for the past 3 years. My colleagues had no idea I lived with my parents, paying them an exorbitant rent while my sister lived for free. The shame burned in my throat. But I had a secret they didn't know about. 3 years ago, when I'd first started working, my mentor Sarah had pulled me aside. Listen carefully, she'd whispered, showing me how to open investment accounts that wouldn't show up on basic credit reports. Your parents can see your main checking account because you're still on their account from college. But they can't see this. Every month, I'd deposited my rent money into my parents' account as required. But I'd also been secretly investing my meager leftover funds, sometimes just $50 or $100 at a time. Sarah had taught me about cryptocurrency, index funds, and most importantly, how to spot undervalued properties. The old Victorian house on Maple Street had caught my eye 18 months ago. The elderly owner was selling privately, desperate to move closer to her daughter in Florida. While everyone else saw a fixer-upper, I saw potential. With my savings and a perfectly timed crypto windfall, I'd made an all-cash offer of $127,000, $30,000 below asking price. The seller had accepted immediately, and for the past year, I'd been secretly renovating it room by room. You've been lying to us for a year? Mom's voice cracked with what sounded like genuine hurt, but I caught the flash of calculation in her eyes. I'd told them about the house that morning, thinking honesty might bridge the gap between us. Instead, it had ignited a firestorm. Dad sat at the kitchen table, his face an alarming shade of red, while Jessica paced behind him like a caged animal. Where did you get that kind of money? Dad demanded. You've been holding out on us while we've been struggling with bills. The accusation hit like a physical blow. I'd watched them buy a new hot tub last month, seen Jessica's shopping bags from Nordstrom, witnessed their wine cellar expand with bottles that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I saved every penny I could, I said quietly. I bought clothes at thrift stores, ate ramen for months, worked overtime whenever possible. While paying us a pittance, Mom interrupted. Do you know how much it costs to maintain this house? The utilities alone. $2,500 is not a pittance. I shot back. That's more than the mortgage on a decent apartment. Jessica finally stopped pacing. You manipulated us, she accused. Made us think you were barely scraping by when really you were building some secret real estate empire. Secret real estate empire. One modest house I'd poured my heart and savings into. I moved into my house that weekend, using vacation days to transport my belongings in silence. My childhood bedroom looked strange and empty with just the furniture that had come with the house decades ago. But something nagged at me about my parents' reaction. Their anger felt performative, rehearsed. And Jessica's accusation about manipulation seemed particularly rich coming from someone who'd never paid a dime in rent. On Monday, I confided in Sarah during our lunch break. It doesn't add up, I said, stabbing my salad absently. They acted like I'd been stealing from them. Sarah frowned. Rachel, what exactly have you been paying them $2,500 a month for? Rent, utilities, food. I trailed off, realizing I'd never actually seen a breakdown of costs. Honey, I've seen your parents' financial statements when they applied for that home equity loan last year, Sarah said carefully. Their mortgage payment is $800. Even with utilities and taxes, you've been paying nearly double their entire housing costs. The revelation hit like cold water. They've been profiting off me. Sarah nodded grimly. And if Jessica lives there free, you've essentially been subsidizing her lifestyle too. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I requested copies of my credit report and started tracing every financial connection between my name and my parents. What I found made my blood run cold. They'd been using my excellent credit score as a co-signer on multiple accounts I'd never agreed to. The documents arrived via email at 3 a.m., 27 pages of financial records that my friend Marcus from college had helped me obtain. Marcus worked for a private investigation firm, and after hearing my story, he'd offered to dig deeper as a favor. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. My parents had co-signed me onto 3 credit cards, a home equity line of credit, and a loan for Jessica's BMW, all without my knowledge or signature. They'd been making minimum payments using my monthly rent money while accumulating debt in my name. The total exposure was nearly $89,000. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. The house I'd grown up in, the house they'd charged me $2,500 a month to live in, had been paid off for 6 years. The mortgage statements I'd accidentally seen were fake, printed versions they'd created to justify my high rent payments. Meanwhile, they'd taken out a massive home equity loan against the paid-off property, using the funds for luxury purchases and Jessica's lifestyle. I sat in my empty living room, surrounded by boxes I hadn't yet unpacked, as the reality sank in. They hadn't just been overcharging me for rent, they'd been systematically committing financial fraud while positioning themselves as struggling parents who needed my help. The final document in Marcus's file was a copy of a text conversation between my parents from 6 months ago. Rachel's getting too comfortable. We need to push her out before she starts asking questions about the finances. I called them from the parking lot of their house, watching through their large front window as they sat around the dining table I'd eaten at for 18 years. We need to talk, I said when Mom answered. Oh, honey, we've been worried sick. You left so abruptly. I know about the credit cards, I interrupted. I know about the fake mortgage payments. I know the house has been paid off since 2018. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Dad's voice came through, hard and defensive. I don't know what you think you've discovered, but I have documentation of everything, I said quietly. Bank statements, credit reports, loan applications with forged signatures. Should I continue? Through the window, I watched Jessica lean forward, her face tight with concern. Mom's hand flew to her throat in that gesture she'd made whenever she was caught in a lie during my childhood. You're our daughter, Mom said finally, her voice thick with manufactured emotion. We would never intentionally hurt you. You've stolen my identity to rack up nearly $90,000 in debt, I replied. You've been charging me more than your entire housing costs while Jessica lives free. You planned to evict me before I could discover the truth. Dad grabbed the phone. Now you listen here, young lady. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. You owe us. I owe you nothing, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. But you owe me. and you're going to pay it back. The next morning, I walked into the law office of Patricia Hendricks, a family law attorney Sarah had recommended. Patricia was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that had clearly seen every type of family drama imaginable. Identity theft between family members is more common than people realize, she explained, reviewing the evidence I'd brought. The challenge is that most victims don't want to press criminal charges against their own parents. I don't want to destroy them, I admitted. I just want this to stop. Patricia nodded. We'll start with a demand letter. They have 30 days to close all fraudulent accounts, make arrangements to pay off the debt they've accumulated in your name, and provide written acknowledgement that they obtained these accounts without your permission. And if they refuse, then we file both civil and criminal complaints. Identity theft is a federal crime, regardless of whether the perpetrators are family members. The demand letter was delivered by certified mail on a Thursday. By Friday afternoon, my phone was ringing constantly with calls from my parents, Jessica, and various aunts and uncles who'd apparently been recruited for an intervention campaign. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I spent the weekend painting my new bedroom a soft sage green and planting flowers in the front yard. For the first time in years, I was making decisions about my living space without consulting anyone or justifying my choices. Sunday evening, Jessica showed up at my door. "This is insane, Rachel," she said, pushing past me into my hallway. "They're your parents." Jessica stood in my living room, taking in the hardwood floors I'd refinished myself and the built-in bookshelves I'd carefully restored. Her expression cycled through surprise, envy, and finally, anger. "This is what you were doing while crying poverty at home," she demanded. "While Mom and Dad worried about making ends meet?" I almost laughed. "Jessica, they charged me $30,000 a year to live in a bedroom while you lived in a custom apartment for free. They've been using my credit to fund your lifestyle and their luxury purchases." "That's not—" she started, then stopped. Her face went pale. "The BMW loan is in my name, along with your credit cards and the home equity loan they used to build your apartment." Jessica sank onto my couch, the fight leaving her body. "I didn't know," she whispered. "They told me you insisted on paying rent because you felt guilty about living there as an adult." For a moment, I felt sorry for her. She'd been as manipulated as I had, just in a different way. "They've been playing us against each other for years," I said gently. "Making you feel guilty for not contributing while making me feel guilty for not contributing enough." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "What happens now?" "Now they have 23 days to start fixing what they've done," I said. "If they don't, I file criminal charges." Jessica's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face crumpled. "It's Mom. She says you're trying to destroy the family." I walked to my kitchen and returned with a folder full of documents. "These are copies of everything I've discovered. Look through them. Then decide for yourself who's been destroying this family." 3 weeks later, I sat in Patricia's office as she reviewed the settlement agreement my parents had finally signed. They would close all fraudulent accounts, assume responsibility for all debt accumulated in my name, and pay me $15,000 in damages for the unauthorized use of my credit. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue criminal charges. They've also agreed to attend financial counseling, Patricia noted, and to have no further access to your personal information. It wasn't everything I'd lost over the years, but it was acknowledgement and accountability. More importantly, it was freedom. Jessica had moved out of the garage apartment the week before, renting a modest one-bedroom across town. She'd gotten a job at a marketing firm and was slowly paying back the money she now understood had been stolen from me. Our relationship was fragile but healing, built on truth instead of manipulation. My parents and I maintained minimal contact, holiday cards and brief, polite conversations. The deep love I'd felt for them had been replaced by something more complex. A recognition that they were flawed people who'd made destructive choices, but also an understanding that my worth wasn't determined by their approval. 6 months later, I received an unexpected letter. It was from a young woman named Claire whose parents had been charging her excessive rent while her siblings lived free. She'd found my story through a financial abuse support group and wanted advice. That letter became the first of dozens. I started a blog called Financial Family Boundaries and began speaking at workshops about recognizing and addressing financial manipulation within families. What had started as my personal nightmare had become my purpose, helping others recognize their worth beyond what others told them they should contribute or accept. Standing in my beautifully restored kitchen, reading thank you emails from people who'd found the courage to set their own boundaries, I realized something profound. My parents' betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been the catalyst for discovering my own strength. I was no longer the daughter who accepted whatever treatment she was given. I was the woman who knew her worth and demanded others recognize it too. The house on Maple Street wasn't just my home. It was my declaration of independence. And every month when I paid my mortgage, a real mortgage in my name only, for a house that truly belonged to me, I remembered what I'd learned. Family love should never come with a price tag that bankrupts your future or your self-respect.